I'm one of your Oxygen Challenge coaches. Now, in this program, I focus a lot on alignment and what you think.
All right. Today on the show, we have Mr. Andrew Park. Andrew's a top 100 teacher, coach to, I believe, 3 major champions.
Yeah, 2, at least 2, yeah.
2. And then we have Chris Wilson, former PGA Tour player and Korn Ferry Tour winner. And Andrew was his coach when he first got out on tour. So welcome to both of you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
This is going to be a cool talk today because I got to work with Chris later in his career when he was kind of finishing things up, and Andrew got him started. So it's kind of full circle and full experience. So let's talk a little bit about how you guys connected and got things going.
Yeah, I'll jump in there real quick. So I grew up in Ohio, there where you are currently, Doug. And after I turned professional, I was doing 6 months in Ohio in the summers and then 6 months in Orlando in the winters. And had a mutual friend with David Ledbetter down there at Champions Gate. And David was nice enough to welcome me with open arms to sort of use his facility down there to practice and to play, in exchange for, doing some range work, picking the range, setting up the range, breaking down the range. And Andrew was teaching there at the time, and that's how we first met. And I was there for probably 3 or 4 winters, I would say. And so we just kind of developed a relationship and a good friendship, outside of golf. And we'd go out and play in the evenings or have lunch, during the working hours. And I began to sort of pick Andrew's brain about some things. And obviously he's a very smart instructor, and kind of began working with him that way over that time period.
Awesome. And what draws you to Chris, Andrew?
What's that? Sorry.
I said, what draws you to Chris? What made you want to start working with Chris and kind of helping him out?
Well, obviously he went to Northwestern University, and then he came down, and he had a really good swing at the time, good game, and we used to go out and play, and then he used to pick my brain, and then that's actually how we started playing, and how I started teaching him. And he's a hell of a player at the time, and still is, but
Maybe.
Yeah. But anyway, he he had such a simple swing, a simple game, hit it long, perfect. There wasn't much to work on, other than just a few fundamental things and maybe a body motion.
So it was easy
situation.
for you playing, Andrew.
Yeah, when you get good players, it makes it a little bit easier because you don't have to, start from scratch. You jump right in and tackle maybe the main cause of something that's not working. But no, he had the all around game. From driving it straight to putting, and obviously that came with the coming from college and being one of the top players. And I think, didn't you go to school with Luke Donald?
Luke was a little bit before me, but
Okay.
when I was there, he still lived in Chicago, so he would be around on his off weeks in the off season, practice with us and play with us. So we were able to, sort of kind of watch how he went about his business and, learn a lot from that. And Doug, I will throw in there, the one thing that I thought was really cool that sort of attracted me to picking Andrew's brain and learning from him is he has a playing background as well. Pretty accomplished player himself, internationally. And it was cool because we had a good group of young professionals that were playing out of Champions Gate. Sandra Gall on the ladies tour. Ty Trine was down there for quite a while. We had a good kind of core, maybe 5 to 7 players. And so, in the evenings or something, Andrew would come out and play with us. And what I really liked is he was a player's coach. He has that background. He did a lot of on-course work, a lot of creativity involved. It wasn't just on the range, a stack of balls and video, all the time. It was hitting different types of short game shots and hitting flop shots over a palm tree, or hitting, you know, the low
Mhm.
runner around a stick, or there was all kinds of games, and just he made it a lot of fun, and was very creative in his teaching, and I thought that was pretty cool. And that was an important thing, I think, for me to maintain as I sort of began my professional career, not get kind of tied up in the whole video world.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I want to know what happened between when it was easy and when it became very difficult and kind of a hard challenge for me trying to work with you. But at some point it was easy and then it got really difficult. So let's talk about in between.
Um,
What happened?
well, that's a good question. If I knew the answer to that, I'd probably still be playing for a living. Not to deflect blame on anything or anybody. I played pretty well from about 2009 to say 12 or 13, something like that, on and off the PGA Tour, and winning on the web.com tour at the time. And I did tear my labrum in my left hip, unbeknownst to me, because I was sort of asymptomatic. But I think that had a lot to do with it, more than I thought maybe at the time. Looking back, I think that was a bigger issue than I thought.
Mhm.
And that sort of limited me in some mobility and getting in certain positions. And then you start to, you know, really get into the video. What am I doing wrong? Why is the ball doing this? And you can kind of go down that rabbit hole pretty quick. And that was sort of the transition period, I would say, from when I was kind of a free flowing creative golfer on the golf course to more of an analytical person.
Right. So when you
And-
first got out there, I mean, was it a big change for you guys? Did you guys work through some stuff when you first got on tour? I mean, I'm sure Andrew saw some challenges he knew was coming, or you know, some things that he could help you with, obviously.
You know, I'll chirp in there. You know, I think the biggest challenge was in the beginning when he first got his tour card. And this happens to a lot of tour players who get their card right away, jump onto the tour. So the first tournament is always the Sony, and then you play the Bob Hope, which is you have to play 3 courses. Then the following tournament is usually Torrey Pines, which is 2 different courses. And then you got the Waste Management, and then Pebble, you're playing 3 courses. So I think when he got out there, he wasn't prepared because he hadn't seen the courses. Whereas a lot of these guys have seen those courses for years, so then they know okay, I'll just go and play that one because I don't feel comfortable in that. But he had to actually relearn. It was basically playing all these courses blind, and I think that's, you know, when you look back at the West Coast swing, I think that's where he lost a little bit of confidence. And then you start searching, maybe it's my swing, or, you know, maybe you're not hitting the shots. But I think it was just more just, you know, and another guy, Will Strickland, I got on tour also. He had the same problem, West Coast, because of all the different courses. And then a kid, right, who's it, Marty Doe, same thing happened to him. My advice to pretty much everybody is if you can, go and play all those courses now before you even get on tour, so that when you get there, you're prepared. Because I think, you know, when you look at it, you're playing, you know, about 8 different courses in 2 weeks and 3 weeks. So, you know, it's pretty tough. Whereas most of those guys out there have played for 10, 15 years. So they just say, well, I know that course. They can play that one blind. So then all of a sudden it becomes a bit of a snowball effect. You start thinking, is it my swing? Is it my game? But I just remembered that, you know, more, you know, being the situation of not playing on those courses for the first
Well,
time.
it was, I think my first 4 events on the PGA Tour, it was 9 or 10 different golf courses. So you're playing, you know, for example, at the AT&T at Pebble, you're playing Pebble, Spyglass, and Monterey Peninsula Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then you go straight into the tournament Thursday, Friday. So you're playing, you know, 5 days if you miss the cut, 7 days if you make the cut straight. And then you're going to another event and you have the same setup where you got to play these courses Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to learn them, or Monday, Tuesday, you know, at Torrey Pines where it's the north and south. So you really don't have a break. And so you can get worn down, and the travel, mixed in with that. And like Andrew said, I kind of jumped out there immediately. I went straight from the mini tours back when tour school was the old format. You can go straight to the PGA Tour. So I skipped what at the time was the Nationwide Tour, now the Korn Ferry. So I had no real experience in traveling kind of at that level and playing against that level of competition for that amount of money and the exposure. So not only was learning all these golf courses early in the season, difficult, I was tired. I was worn down by the fourth or fifth week. And then they have these reshuffles every 6 or 8 events.
Mm.
And if you don't play well early, you're not going to get in, events after that. So you sort of put some pressure on yourself if you don't get off to a great start, which is a little bit what happened.
Certainly. Yeah, I think, just from my experience of caddying in a couple majors, when that bell goes off, it's like a race. And when you get out there, like the travel and trying to learn the golf courses, like everything's happening so fast that it's really hard to manage it, especially when you haven't done it before. Definitely a big learning curve.
That's right.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's you'll see some guys, lose their card, then they go out back onto the Korn Ferry now, and then they come back, and then when they get back out there, they stay out there because they've obviously not only played the Korn Ferry, but then secondly they've seen those courses before, and I think it's a sort of a double-edged sword because when you get your tour card and you have a good number, you're going to get into all the West Coast tournaments. But the guys that have a lower number, they don't get into the West Coast. They get in when they do they get into the ones on the East Coast. So they're only playing one course at a time. So I think those guys then realize, hey, I've been sitting around, so I'm going to jump on this. And whereas like Chris had a good number because he played really well at tour school. So he got all the starts in the beginning and playing so many courses. I think that was the problem. So it's just, I would just say it's, lack of course experience, and my advice to anybody is go and play those in December when you got your tour card. Try and just go and play a couple of weeks ahead of time.
Yeah, and the other thing that I did that I would do differently if I had the opportunity again was, I was in my early 20s at that point, and I think I made maybe 5 of my first 7 cuts, but hadn't played great on the weekend. And at that point, you're sort of, why am I not closing the deal, at the end of the tournament? Why can I not, finish in the top 20? Why am I kind of struggling towards the end of the week? And fatigue was a big part of it. So I would work a little bit better on sort of managing my time away from the golf course when I was out there, because every day and every night there's an activity or tickets to this event or, something to pro-am party or something to go to a dinner. So I'd probably do a little bit less of that and sort of just rest and maintain kind of my energy levels. That would be kind of something that I would kind of look back on and say I would change if I had the chance again.
Right. But it's you want to soak up the whole experience too, right? That's the hard part. And I think it's hard to be successful and do everything. You got to pick and choose, and sometimes those choices are very difficult.
Yeah, that's correct. You got to sort of look back and, sort of say, okay, the management, I know a lot of players. I've seen the younger ones. We all know one of the guys who got out there when he was 18, or actually he was 17, Pytron. The only thing that was wrong there was course, preparation before the tournament. I remember seeing him at I think it was a Wachovia back in North Carolina. He was striping it, and so I went back out and I went to go and follow Ernie Els. Came back, and he was still hitting balls, and now he's starting to struggle because he was hitting it perfect. So he should have left and said, let's go. And I think a lot of times, if you look at the guys that are been out there for a while, they'll say, okay, I'm going to go and have a practice round, and then I'm going to hit some balls, and then 4 o'clock I'm going to go and work out, and then 7 o'clock I'm going to go and have dinner, and then go to bed at 9 o'clock or whatever it may be. And so sometimes it's just learning the ropes. Plus, when you get to a golf course, you sort of have to know where the entrances are of the golf course and where you're how to get to the putting green, and trying to avoid all the media and the crowd when you're getting ready. So
that's exactly right. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, Andrew, but
no.
Just to piggyback on that, my first few events, I almost missed my tee times because, the range is here, the first tee's here, and it's only a minute and a half walk. But at tour events, it'll take you 5 to 7 minutes because they route you a different way with ropes to avoid, fans and crowds or certain things. You got to go around this building. You give a couple autographs or whatever. And so I had to start showing up, almost 2 hours before my tee time to eat breakfast, stretch, prepare, warm up, and then get to the tee. Whereas normally, it's 45 minutes to an hour warm up for me. So that was an adjustment period too. You just had to kind of learn that early on.
Right.
And that all plays into sort of when you go to bed, what time you get up, how much prep time you need before your tee time.
Yeah, and what most people don't realize is, though, that's undue stress, actually, right? You're running a little bit late. You get to the first tee, you're more stressed, and your focus isn't on what you need to do. And it's just one of those little things that adds in there that you don't need it to be, and it can derail you actually getting off to a good start.
A lot of it could be subconscious, too.
Yeah, that's true. And then the distractions, sometimes you'll be walking and somebody try and catch your attention, and whether it's a manager or volunteer or somebody looking for an autograph. And so that all comes with that first year, knowing what to do and what not to do. I mean, it's like Tiger Woods. I mean, asking Michael Jordan how he handles going to a restaurant, and he said, I just walk in holding my cell phone. And obviously that's what he does, just to make sure people don't stop him or ask him for an autograph when he's at the restaurant or something. So it's all that experience that first year. You sort of learning the ropes, and I think I remember when I taught Eric Booker, his big brother was Payne Stewart, because he actually asked him to be his big brother on how to learn what to do, how to prepare. So we had a practice round the year. Yeah, unfortunately, had that plane crash, and it was quite interesting because he has Payne Stewart playing a practice round, and he's got long pants on, and no one even asked him for an autograph, and they're asking the other guys because no one recognized him. But it was I've still got the footage of it all, and he was explaining, you want to hit it here, hit it there, and then you would also ask him afterwards, what do you do when you how do you practice? Because Eric was good at picking people's brains. I mean, he'd go and pick Seve or Olazabal's brain on the range, and I say, hey, let's go mess with them, and let's go play, see how they hit the shot. And then you would walk away going, yeah, he's holding back on me. But that was Eric for you. He was trying to learn from everybody, and he did stay out on tour. He nearly won the first 2 years, but he definitely had seen those courses before, because he did spend a few years on the web.com. I think it was Nike or web.com back then. And so then when he got out on tour, he was able to, he knew the courses already. So, but definitely, it all goes back to experience and asking players, how they do it. And
Joe Durant was kind of my big brother out there. Playing Q School, second stage of Q School with Joe that fall before I got my tour card. We played, I think, the last round, maybe the last 2 rounds of second stage, and I got through. I think he just missed, but he'd had enough status prior that he was still going to be out there for the majority of the year. And so we played a few practice rounds early in the year, and he couldn't have been a nicer guy. And his caddy at the time, Bob Lowe, became a good friend, and he was sort of my mentor and helped direct me out there a little bit.
Right. Let's talk. I think from this is pretty cool though, right? From a coach's standpoint to a player standpoint, when you're out there in the middle of the season in the battle, I think a lot of coaches get like it's their fault the player's not performing, and sometimes that's definitely the case. But at the same time, there's so many other factors, like we just discussed, that really the coach doesn't have control of. The players still learning, trying to feel their way through it. There's so many factors going on there that to have it work out and succeed there's so many things going on.
Well, let's just set the record straight here. If a player is shooting high scores, it's 100% the teacher's fault. It's not our fault.
Always, right?
I'm kidding, of course. It is a tough balance, though, and Andrew can speak on this because he's taught out there for a long time. But
I think for him too, right? Like he's learned from all the experiences that he's had with different players, and now he's sharing that with the players that he sees and developing now. Which it's always a continuous cycle. Where you're always learning something. You're always having different experiences. You're always saying, "Well, this didn't work. Maybe we'll do it this way." Which for him is he has so much experience and value from all those experiences and being around the best players in the world that he's able to share going forward.
Yeah, and that is true because you learn from each player, how they prepare, and then when you teaching that one is on their way up to making it on tour, you able to share the pros and cons of what you need to do, and you need to prepare like this or that when it comes to going to the tour, because everybody's different. They all think that they've got their own idea, but you have to actually guide them through it a little bit, especially when you get out into that on the tour. You're facing the best in the world, and so learning what each player, their personality, number one, what they like to listen to. I mean, less is more sometimes. When you say less, it helps. I mean, I remember one of our players who won went out there on the Tuesday. The person was hitting it perfect, hitting it great on Wednesday, and then wins I left on the Saturday, and I get back on Sunday and wins, and then says to me, the dad says to me, "Yeah, Andrew, we paid him to come all the way out here to say it looks good." I mean, what do you say when somebody's striping it? We worked on different short game shots around the green, just for the different grass, and that was the only thing we worked on. But when somebody's striping it, you leave it alone. Don't even go down that hole. And if they miss hitting it, you sort of just work it into maybe like a shot pattern or your go-to shots that week, instead of doing something technical. Doing something technical is the last play. The last thing you want to do when you're out on helping a tour player.
I think what you just said, Andrew, I think that's actually a sign of a great teacher. The word instructor and the word teacher mean two different things to me, or coach and instructor. But I think that's a sign of a great coach, is someone who can hold back and not say something and know the right time to do that. And for me, when I was out there and had you come out, or had, later in the season had Jason Carbone come out, a lot of it was a comfort factor too. Like, I didn't necessarily need a whole lot of coaching at that point, but having someone that I knew, someone that I had a good friendship with, a good relationship with, to walk the practice round with and joke around with and have dinner with. I think that kind of created a sense of calm, at least for myself. And I think a lot of other players would probably agree with that.
That's the hard part for a coach and player. The player is always after the events like, "Why didn't you tell me this before?" And you're like, "Well, it wasn't the right time." sometimes it's just a hard decision to make, and you got to go with one. You just got to make a decision and go with it, whether you tell somebody something or you don't.
Yeah, and that's an art,
Yeah.
Andrew. That's the art of coaching.
Right.
Yeah, it's coming from a playing background, a lot of times you learn from what the player. I mean, you learn whether they like to hear much or hear little. I've had players going, "Tell me something. Tell me what I need to do." So, but if they're hitting it good, I just say, let's keep it simple. That all comes with learning. Everybody's different. We always got to remember everybody has a different personality. You can't teach two people the same thing. And as we always say, you learn from students. You don't learn from other coaches. You learn from the actual student on how to teach. And when I play it, I use some of my experiences of saying, well, is this what I want to hear? Or do I want to hear a lot, or do I want to hear just one thing? And then when the player asks questions, sometimes you answer what they want to hear, but then there's other times you just try and distract the question, because then it's going to go down a different track where they want, you start answering it, and then it becomes more technical, and then all of a sudden now we're back at square one. So it's a very fine line. I mean, sometimes you give good lessons, sometimes you give bad ones, because you hadn't sort of caught on to the students, maybe personality and how they learn. So that learning curve is a very sensitive area.
So Chris, we know you learned a lot from Andrew. What did Andrew learn from Chris Wilson?
So I learned a lot from him. I mean, he's such a good ball striker. Everything only thing I learned a lot on, he's maybe I would say he was a little bit hard on himself at times, and I always try to lighten it up, just at times. And we all get hard on ourselves. I mean, I remember playing, I was hard on myself. I was probably harder on myself than Chris was. But, that comes sort of your background, expectations, maybe the first year expecting to do well instead of letting it develop. We all go out that first year on any tour and expect a lot. Or it's a thing where some players are out there and then they're going, what am I? They're just trying to ride that wave or trying to learn while they're going, instead of having a plan. And the Nick Price always had a definite plan. He said, do this, do this, do that. That's when I caddied for him in 2001 because his caddy got injured. And he asked me for 7 yardages on one hole. And I'm going, wow, it's 7 yardages to the one pin. And he just couldn't get a grip on it. And all of a sudden he says, you know what, I don't feel good today. I'm just going to take a knockdown 4-iron, started up the left, cut it into the pin. And he hit it exactly the way he described it and hit it there to about 6 feet and made the putt. And I said to him, did you always play like this? He says, some days I feel like I can hit 6-iron at that pin, but today my body didn't feel good. I just, went with a 4-iron. And, so he said, I can never visualize a shot. But I can, when I talk about it, he talks to the caddy, like he used to talk to Squeaky when Squeaky used to caddy for him. He always said, yeah, I'm going to do this and that. That's why he gives the best playing lesson on, if you ever listen to that. And so a lot of times, I think, having a good plan is part of it.
Yeah, well, and to talk about sort of the beginning of your monologue there, Andrew, talking about expectations and being hard on yourself. I think I got through Q school in 2009 in the fall, and I played the last 2 rounds at final stage with Ricky Fowler and ended up beating him. And he was the name, the superstar, the up and comer. So I kind of proved to myself that I had the ability to get out there and to stay out there, kind of based on that. And there's a I don't know if sometimes it's a subconscious pressure, sometimes it's not, but you don't know if you're ever going to get back out on the PGA Tour if you lose your card. So getting off to that good start early, like we talked about, was important. And there's definitely a certain amount of pressure you can put on yourself, and that goes along with being hard on yourself if you're not having that early success. And like Andrew mentioned earlier, that can kind of snowball on you if you missed your first 3 or 4 cuts, and you start thinking, well, am I going to get in any tournaments in the next group of them? And if I don't, what am I going to do? Am I going to play? And then am I going to lose my card because of that? And so you start pressing, and you start, adding unnecessary pressure that there's things that are out of your control that you have to sort of just kind of let happen. And that was a little bit a part of kind of what happened to me out there when it came to being hard on myself. I think it was just sort of, you have to perform now. You can't, it's not a month from now, it's not next year, because you don't know if you're going to keep your card or stay out there or ever have a chance to play out there again.
Right. Got a little bit ahead of it, and it kind of affected where you're at then, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a tough spot, right? Like, it's a learning experience. If you knew you had 2 or 3 years, you could change that experience for sure.
Yeah. But you essentially have 5 weeks to get it done in that first shuffle. And if you don't know what the future is going to look like.
Right. Cool. Did you have any specific stories you wanted to share about Andrew?
Oh man. Specific stories about Andrew. Well, there was one time, so when we were kind of working, this was right before I got my card, I think. I was down there in Orlando living, and he was busy teaching a lot during the day, and he would be kind enough to take some time in the evenings or come out on a Saturday or a Sunday, work with me in the mornings. And there was one specific, I think you had maybe some Korean players in town, Andrew, something the week before. And, and they had one of those, it was a fart machine. It was a speaker with a remote. So you could put the speaker wherever you want and click the remote, and it would make the sound, somewhere else. And they got a kick out of that. And we were laughing the whole day about that. And I think I'm not sure whose it was, but we had it on this Sunday morning. We went out to practice, and he was nice enough to meet me in the morning. So we did some work, and then he said, let's go grab some lunch up at the clubhouse. And, it was about 11:30 or so. And it was sort of the Sunday brunch where everybody's coming in after church and they're all dressed nice, and we're sitting there in the corner. And Andrew, he starts snickering under his breath. And I said, what's so funny? And he goes, watch this. And he had the remote under the table, and he was pressing it. He had put the speaker in one of the pot plants by the front door where you walk in. So these older people were coming from church for their Sunday brunch walking in, and he would hit it as they walked through. And a number of times the wife would kind of hit her husband on the shoulder because she thought it was him walking through. So we got a good laugh out of that. And that thing was, that was a fun toy to mess around with. We'd stick it in head covers and put it on people's bags or put it in the back of a cart. And we had a lot of good laughs about that.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually got some players to actually try and do it, because some of those pro-ams can be very, tense. And so when you're playing in a pro-am and you got it in your bag or a snake, because I remember Nick Price always used to have a rubber snake, and he'd throw it down when the guys are looking for their ball, and wait, watch out, So it would lighten up at the moment. I mean, the fart machine, you're standing on the tee there and pushing it. I remember getting Sandra Gal to put one in her bag, and I mean, she'd push it and then look over to the players, and it just lightened up the whole atmosphere. Because a lot of the guys get out there and they're so nervous and tense and pro-am. So, but pulling some pranks on people is pretty funny. I think it always lightens up the atmosphere at the time. But a funny story was the time we had Andy Zhang, who got into the US Open back in 2012. He was only 14 years old, and we knew he went into the bathroom. And then we snuck in there and locked him in there, and he had no clue how to get out of the bathroom. But there were some good stories.
We had a lot of fun down there. We had a good group of people with good senses of humor, kind of similar to ours, and we were always pulling pranks and tricks like that on people. And like Andrew said, it would kind of it would lighten the mood a lot of times if people were too tense or too serious, and we got a lot of good laughs those years.
Well, I think the big thing though, right? Like Andrew helped develop the culture of success, and you guys bought into it, and it was fun, and you wanted to be around each other, and everybody became successful from it.
Yeah, that's true. When it comes to working on the game, I think you got to have some serious time and then have fun. I think a lot of the players that I've seen coming from overseas and that, they're very serious, and they might have a parent or guardian right next to them all day, every day. And I think, you being out there for 8 to 10 hours it gets wearing on you quite a bit. But the people that sort of have that, okay, we'll be serious for maybe a half an hour, and then all of a sudden have fun for another hour, that kind of helps the mind to calm down, and you don't get burnt out. And then you, at the same time, you see golf as fun more than work. So it's, even if though it's your profession, and most people trying to get there, I think it's one thing you have to do is be able to separate the fun and the seriousness between it, but not be serious all day.
Right. Right. Well, I would say, Chris, you'd probably agree with that. When you were out there, and you knew you had full status on either tour, your practice compared to when you're grinding, trying to Monday qualify or playing a mini tour event, you're out there twice as amount of time, trying to find something or pushing yourself, trying to be almost beating yourself up compared to when you knew you could just go play. It was a little bit easier, actually.
Yeah, I mean, having some job security definitely makes things easier for anybody in any industry. And I had some job security on the PGA Tour because I was fully exempt and ended up playing 28 or 29 events that year. But it's still one of those things where, at least for me, I went straight from the mini tours to the PGA Tour. So I kind of skipped that, at the time, nationwide tour middle ground. And so it was a big learning curve. It was like kind of being thrown into a blender and turned on high, because I'd never traveled to that extent. I'd never played against, cuts like that on mini tours, played for that kind of money. Competition was stiffer. And like I said, you can kind of get into a downward spiral if you're not playing well, or an upward spiral if you are playing well, and you ride that wave like Andrew mentioned. So there's a lot of momentum that kind of plays a factor in things out there, I think. But definitely having some job security made things a little bit easier than the guys who were maybe on conditional status or, not fully exempt.
Cool. Thanks, guys. That's what good discussion today. That's what I had for you. If you guys had anything else you wanted to share, that would be more than welcome.
Andrew, are you still having people hit baseballs on the range? Hit golf balls with a baseball bat?
Oh yeah, I do it. I mean, it's good for the dynamics. I mean, get the baseball bat. The kids have fun doing it. Parents sort of frown upon it, but when you're explaining to them that it's helping their hand-eye coordination, and then also helping them understand the kinetic chain.
Yeah.
And it definitely it's still fun. I mean, I'm probably going to do it more now when things get going again, but I mean, I should be doing it now because I'm teaching outdoors. I don't want anybody indoors.
Yeah.
As we pick up the germs, downwind is okay. And, but No, I still remember the day that you remember when you're getting ready to go on tour and you got your new clubs, new balls, everything from your sponsor at the time. And I remember we went out one Sunday morning and we hit because we wanted to see how far the clubs were going. And I said, you know what, let's forget about the bush now. Let's do it the old fashioned way. And we hit 10 balls along the flat lie on that tee box, and we hit every single club and then got the averages. And it pretty much was the same as you always did. And the gaps between your clubs were perfect. And, you know, those are the things, you know, doing some manual stuff on a Sunday or, you know, one afternoon when you got nothing to do, that's where, you know, those are the things that add up to being successful, I think.
Yeah, we did a lot of neat things like that when I was down there. I mean, we would do, like you mentioned, we'd go out when it wasn't busy and kind of stand perpendicular to the range itself and hit along the tee box. So we had a flat surface, and we'd do yardages that way with wedges and with irons. And, you know, we would do all kinds of creative drills in the bunker, hitting the 4-iron out, laying the face open, you know, all kinds of putting matches with Andy Beam when he was down there practicing some, and the tour guys that would stop by to see David and yourself and Kevin. And it made it enjoyable to have a group to be around, and sort of, you know, coming from the team atmosphere in college golf to playing professionally as an individual, you missed a little bit of that camaraderie. And that's what Champions Gate and Andrew and everybody down there sort of provided for me and the other professionals. And so we had a good group and kind of motivated each other, and always having fun doing competitions, which was a big part of things.
It's all about the culture.
That's right.
Yeah. Cool, guys. Well, I appreciate your time.
No, you're welcome. Thanks
Yeah,
for having me.
Wash your hands.
Yeah, everybody wash your hands.
Wash your hands and your feet.
All right.
Thanks,
All
Doug.
right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Andrew.
All right. Thanks, guys.